Hi, my name is Julianne, also known as Roadrunner, and in 2022 I thru-hiked the entire Appalachian Trail northbound from Springer Mountain to Katahdin, Maine. And today I want to go over some of the hostels that any kind of thru-hiker is gonna come across when hiking the Appalachian Trail. Now, I was trying to think on how to actually do this review about the different hostels, and I came up with a little scoring system from 1 to 3. 3 being the best hostel I would highly recommend. Number 2, you can take it or leave it, and it really depends on your own experience. And 1, wouldn't personally recommend. Now, there are mostly number 2s. Yeah, so there are mostly hostels that were scored with a 2. And there's only a few that were scored with a 3 and only a few that were scored with a 1, because it really just depends on your own personal experience with a lot of these hostels. And even the ones that I don't recommend, again, it just really depends on your own experience. The very first hostel that I personally came across was Around the Bend, which is in Hiawassee, Georgia. And I only came across it because my hiking partner, Fox, at the time had something reserved there and I had not originally planned to go. But because I was going through some knee pain, I ended up going to Around the Bend with her reservation and we shared the room, and it was one of the best experiences. Around the Bend is a lovely, lovely hostel. It has an option of some bunk rooms. You can go to a private room, private shared rooms, and then there are some sheds. And shed is not a bad word. These are really decently nice sheds that you can stay in. And overall, I would give Around the Bend probably a 3. It's one of the ones that I highly do recommend, mainly because it is clean. The owners are extremely friendly. Shuttle service is very flexible but also very accommodating. So it's overall a really amazing hostel to stay at. The next hostel that I personally came across was Standing Bear, which happens to be right after the Smoky Mountains. Now, Standing Bear is a little bit unique. It isn't the newest building. It is a rustic. I did like the way it felt when I arrived, so I overall really thought that it was a cute little place. There are some negative aspects when it comes to this particular hostel. First of all, it's first come, first serve, or first come, first reserve, so you can't really reserve anything ahead of time, which was a little bit stressful as a hiker because you're trying to make your way into Standing Bear Farms like as fast as possible. Fox and I, we were lucky enough to not have to stay in the bunk room, but we were able to reserve a little cabin that had 2 beds, so that was really nice. I would consider this a party hostel personally, meaning the noise is a little bit louder, people are enjoying their time a lot longer at night, and so if you are not into that, maybe Standing Bear Farm would not be the one. Also, at Standing Bear Farm, that is where I first learned of the term flower in a different format. I never heard this before, so if you know what flower means, you know what happens at Standing Bear Farm. They did offer a breakfast in the morning, which was biscuits and gravy, and unfortunately that biscuits and gravy was the worst biscuits and gravy I've ever had in my life, and I am not exaggerating. I love biscuits and gravy, and this was the worst. Sorry, Standing Bear Farms, just saying. The next hostel that does come to mind is Uncle Johnny's. Feels very similar to Standing Bear Farms, a little bit more of a party hostel. It is decently organized. It does have a nice little resupply by itself, but also it has a shuttle that takes you into town so that you can go and resupply. The shuttle was filled up really to the brim, and it felt a little bit unsafe to drive in it, but I mean, we're hikers hiker trash, and honestly I can't really complain if I get a free ride into town. One of the more popular hostels is Laughing Heart, which is in Hot Springs, and Hot Springs is one of my favorite hiker towns. So with that said, Laughing Heart is a hostel that a lot of hikers do go to, and they have like two different options. There's the hostel itself, and then like kind of like a lodge, and both of them are called the Laughing Heart. We stayed at the hostel. Fox and I did get a room for 2 people, but you also can go into the bunk rooms, or you can go to the lodge or hotel, Laughing Heart Hotel, and Cheeseball had her own room in the Laughing Heart Lodge. The actual hostel itself is a little bit noisy because of the construction. The walls are thinner and it's very easy to hear other people. But it did have a kitchen, was really nice, and then it allowed hikers to be able to cook. Fox and Dogfish were actually able to cook us some Chinese food, which was amazing. And then there were also some hikers that made pancakes for us in the morning because there was some pancake batter left at Laughing Heart Hostel. What grade would I give to them? I would give them a 2. Next up is Station 19E. Station 19E gets a 2.5. It's one that I would almost highly recommend, but only not because the same applies here when it comes to the noise level. The construction of the building isn't so amazing, so you can kind of hear a lot of other people. But otherwise, the owner is extremely accommodating, and what I really love about Station 19E is that it had like this little baby restaurant, and it had a lot of nice food, and the food was really tasty. But also they made an amazing breakfast in the morning, and additionally they had some other activities for hikers or even the people from town. There was a karaoke night, and then there was also a line dance night. So that's a really cool little place to go to and have a 0. I definitely highly recommend a 0. So 2.5, almost 3. Another hostel very well known is Boots Off Hostel, which is a lovely little place. It has some tent pads that are available for you to tent on, and that's what I did. I chose to do that. I love to stay in my tent. I prefer not to be like in bunk rooms or anything like that. So I definitely did that. Boots Off Hostel is fun. It has one of the best outdoor showers, which is really a real shower, but it just looks like it's an outdoor shower. And the same goes for the privy. The privy itself is a real toilet. It just looks like a privy. So it's really a cool little place to be at. I am giving them a 2 though, because the people at Boots Off were a little bit weird, and I felt a little bit uncomfortable around some of them, and so the vibe was not as welcoming as at other hostels. When we got into Virginia, we did a bunch of platinum blazing. So the first hostel that we stayed at was it actually? Oh, the first hostel that we stayed at was Weary Feet. And Weary Feet is one of the hostels I do not recommend. So that gets a 1. It gets a 1 because the bunk room was much left to be desired. It had a bunk, but really not much cushion. They didn't really offer a mattress, and it was quite dangerous to use your own pad and not have it pop on their bunks. Also, they did overcharge us when we stayed there. They charged us double for things that they shouldn't have charged us. So I don't really recommend Weary Hostel, but again, a lot of people have a really great experience with this hostel. And then after that, I believe, or it might have been before, I am not really sure about the order, but we did stay at Woods Hole Hostel. It's very famous for the owner and her unique style of having the hostel. It's very famous for the food that the hostel owner makes. It is all vegetarian/vegan. No meat, it's all from her own garden, and it's really amazing. The food is amazing. The bunk room or the bunk cabin was so cute and cozy, and overall it was a really great setup. The one thing that I didn't really like, that we were limited to the shower time. It does make sense just because there's only a certain amount of hot water. You also want to be considerate of other hikers wanting to take a shower, but I believe it was limited to like less than 5 minutes or even less than that. It just felt like I had to rush taking a shower. And after you've been out in the cold, and that happened to be the case for us, we were out in freezing rain, it would have been nice to be able to take a longer shower. I would give this hostel a 3 because it was amazing, but maybe I should go to a 2.5 because of the shower limitations. And look, there's a lizard right there. I don't really have much to say about Angel's Rest. We did stay there. Angel's Rest has an option of bunk rooms, but also it has an option for you to rent a room in a house, which is really nice because it also has a kitchen and you have your own room, and Fox and I shared a room at that time. And I believe Groceries had her own room, and then Cheeseball and Little Chap stayed in the bunk room. So not much to say. I did enjoy my stay, but it wasn't so overwhelming that I would feel either way, so they do get a 2. After that, not many other hostels do come to mind, but I do have 2 other places that do get a number 3. They are the most amazing hostels and places that I've ever stayed at, and one of them is Lady Di's in Damascus, Virginia. She's not really a hostel per se. I would say she's more like a bed and breakfast, but she does have 3 different rooms that can hold more than, I think, 4 to 6 hikers, and the accommodations are amazing. Everything is clean. Lady Di is extremely welcoming. She is a former thru hiker, and also the food that she makes in the morning is made with so much love that you can really taste it when you eat it in the morning. It's really fun because you are sleeping, and then at around 5 or even before that, you start hearing her in the kitchen and you can smell the coffee that she's brewing, and it just really feels like you're at home. So Lady Di is probably the best place that I stayed at when I did my thru hike. It is so wonderful, and you should not miss staying at Lady Di's when you get to Damascus, Virginia. The other hostel that does get a number 3 as one of the best hostels that I've ever stayed at is the Maine Roadhouse in Maine. It is owned by 2 Jennifers, and they are absolutely amazing. They pick you up with a little school bus and take you to the hostel. The bunk room is the best bunk room I've ever stayed at. They are huge, like the bunks are huge. You have your own little space. They come with little curtains that go around your bunk. Each bunk has a charging port, and it really feels like you're in your own little home. They do also have the option of staying in some rooms, but I felt that the bunk room was sufficient and not really that noisy to stay at. Because of how it was set up, there were not that many issues when it comes to noise. So I highly recommend the Maine Roadhouse. The breakfast that they made in the morning was delish. They made, what did they make? They made pancakes, like banana pancakes and many other delicious things. And they brought you right back to the trailhead in the morning in the very, very cool school bus. So the Maine Roadhouse, highly recommend. Do not skip the Maine Roadhouse. I just saying it like you shouldn't. It is so cool to experience. And then lastly, I do have to mention the NOC one more time. I did make a video about the NOC that was a little bit of a satire about it. The NOC is accommodations that you can get when you hike down into the Nantahala outdoors region. And you're just coming from a little stretch from Waya and Wesser Mountain. And I would have to say the NOC is a negative 1. It is just not a great place to stay. It's highly overpriced. When you rent even just the cabins that have 2 bunks in them, they are $100 per cabin, and the accommodations are not just scarce, but also it's not clean, it's extremely noisy, it smells like mold. It just, there's not much left to be desired, and the NOC is one of the worst places to stay at when it comes, well, the NOC base camp cabins are the worst place to stay at. So if you want to stay there, of course, that's up to you. You'll have your own experience. You might really love it. We just didn't really enjoy it, or I would have to say I didn't really enjoy it. I can't really speak for Fox. Those are all the hostels that really come to mind. I know that there are a few that I missed, but because I missed them, I have an idea that they might have not been very memorable and therefore not so much a reason to mention. I hope that you got something out of it, and if you are a thru hiker, I hope this helps you make decisions in your choosing of hostels. But again, don't really go too much by what I'm saying. Have your own experience. You might even want to stay at some of those hostels that do get a 1 because of the experience itself, because it wouldn't be the same for me, or it wouldn't have been the same for me if I hadn't experienced some of those not so great hostels, because then I wouldn't probably have enjoyed the really great ones as much. So everything comes with the experiences and choices that we make, and I hope you have a wonderful time as you thru hike or as you section hike and stay at some of these hostels.